Look, nobody to talk about the US dollar potentially going belly up, but the reality is the global economy is built on a foundation shakier than a toddler on a unicycle. And the cornerstone of that shaky foundation? You guessed it, the almighty greenback. Now, I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow or even next year, but the warning signs are there. Think about it, the dollar is the Beyoncé of currencies. Everyone knows it, everyone mostly loves it, and it's basically running the show. So what happens when Queen Bey decides she's done with this whole global reserve currency thing? Well, buckle up, Buttercup, because things are about to get messy. Imagine waking up one morning and scrolling through your phone, only to find out that the value of the US dollar has plummeted overnight. Suddenly, the news is flooded with images of stock tickers resembling a roller coaster, and experts are throwing around words like meltdown and apocalypse. A dollar collapse would be like someone chucking a grenade into the world's financial system. Global trade, which relies heavily on the dollar, would grind to a halt. Imagine trying to buy your morning coffee only to find out that the price has tripled, and nobody knows what anything is worth anymore. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Remember the 2008 financial crisis? That was a family reunion compared to this. We're talking widespread panic, economic instability on a massive scale, and governments scrambling to figure out what to do next. The ripple effects of a dollar collapse would be felt across the globe, hitting developing countries particularly hard. It's like the butterfly effect, but instead of a butterfly flapping its wings, it's the world's most powerful currency taking a nosedive. And instead of a gentle breeze, it's a Category 5 economic hurricane. Remember that cup of coffee we were talking about? Well, get ready to start remortgaging your house for it. Without the stability of the US dollar, hyperinflation becomes a real threat. Prices could skyrocket faster than a SpaceX rocket launch. Your hard-earned cash could become as valuable as Monopoly money. That $5 latte, now $50. Bread, $100. Salaries can't keep up. Savings become worthless, and bartering returns. Hyperinflation hits the most vulnerable the hardest. Retirees and low-income families bear the brunt. It's a recipe for social unrest and political instability. Remember that scene in It's a Wonderful Life where everyone runs to the bank demanding their money and George Bailey has to talk them off the ledge? Well, imagine that, but on a global scale, and without Jimmy Stewart's calming presence. A dollar collapse wouldn't be a good look for the banking system, to put it mildly. Banks rely on the stability of currencies. They're basically giant, overcomplicated houses of cards built on the promise of the dollar. And when that foundation crumbles, well, let's just say you better have a backup plan for that direct deposit. We're talking bank runs, frozen assets, and the very real possibility that you might not be able to access your own money. And it's not just individual savings that would be at risk. Remember when globalization was all the rage and we were all supposed to be interconnected citizens of the world sharing cultures and economies? Well, a dollar collapse would throw a wrench in that whole kumbaya moment. See, the US dollar isn't just America's currency, it's the global reserve currency. It's what countries use to trade with each other like some kind of economic lingua franca. But when that common language collapses, it's like trying to order a pizza in Mandarin when you only speak Klingon. International trade, which relies heavily on the stability and predictability of the dollar, would be thrown into chaos. Imagine trying to import goods when the exchange rates are fluctuating more wildly than a teenager's mood swings. Remember that global village we were talking about? Well, it just became a series of walled-off economic city-states, each one looking out for its own interests. So, the dollar is out. The global economy is in shambles. Now what? Well, like a game of musical chairs after one too many rounds, the race is on to find a new global reserve currency. Will it be the euro, stepping in to fill the void left by its American counterpart? Or perhaps the Chinese yuan, eager to assert its dominance on the world stage? Maybe it'll be something completely different, a basket of currencies, a digital currency, or maybe even a return to the gold standard. The point is, with the dollar out of the picture, the geopolitical landscape would be ripe for a shakeup. Countries would be vying for economic influence, forming new alliances, and jockeying for position in a world where the rules of the game have fundamentally changed. Who will emerge victorious? Only time will tell. Remember all those friends who were obsessed with Bitcoin back in the day, and you just nodded politely while secretly thinking they were a little too into their multi-level marketing scheme? Well, in a post-dollar collapse world, they might just have the last laugh. With the traditional financial system in disarray, people would be looking for alternative ways to store and exchange value. And that's where things like cryptocurrencies, gold, and other tangible assets could potentially come into play. Now, I'm not saying that Bitcoin is going to become the new global reserve currency, although stranger things have happened. But in a world desperate for stability, anything is possible. Suddenly, those fringe ideas about decentralized finance and digital currencies might not seem so crazy after all. Remember when we were all supposed to be interconnected citizens of the world sharing cultures and economies? Yeah, about that. A dollar collapse might just put a damper on the whole globalization thing. With the dollar out of commission, countries would be scrambling to find regional alternatives. The euro, for example, might become even more dominant in Europe, while other regional blocs could emerge, each with its own currency and economic sphere of influence. It's a retreat from the interconnected global economy we've become accustomed to, and a return to a more fragmented world, where regional powers hold sway. Think of it as the economic equivalent of Pangea breaking apart, except instead of continents drifting, it's currencies and economic alliances. Forget fancy financial instruments and complex derivatives. In a post-dollar world, it's all about getting back to basics. Think bartering, local currencies, and maybe even a little good old-fashioned horse trading. When national currencies become unreliable, people turn to what they know and trust, their local communities and the goods and services they offer. Suddenly that neighbor who's been meticulously tending their vegetable garden becomes the most important person on the block. Who needs Wall Street when you've got a prize-winning zucchini bread recipe and a willingness to barter? Imagine a government, desperate to stimulate a flailing economy, decides to just print more money. Sounds like a good idea, right? More money, more problems. Printing money like it's going out of style might seem like a quick fix, but it's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It devalues the currency, leading to inflation, and further erodes confidence in the already fragile economy. It's a vicious cycle, and one that can spiral out of control alarmingly quickly. Remember those images of people in Venezuela using stacks of cash to buy bread? Yeah, that's what happens when excessive money printing becomes the go-to economic policy. Imagine a government already drowning in debt, suddenly facing a currency crisis. It's like trying to outrun a tsunami. You can sprint, but it's not going to end well. High levels of government debt can erode confidence in a currency, making it less attractive to investors and further fueling its decline. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy of economic doom, and one that governments are often reluctant to address until it's too late. It's like that friend who keeps borrowing money, promising to pay you back soon, but you know deep down they're never going to. Eventually, you stop lending them money, and their house of cards comes crashing down. Imagine a world already grappling with climate change, political polarization, and social unrest. Now throw a global pandemic, a trade war, or any other major economic shock into the mix. It's a recipe for disaster, and one that could easily push a struggling dollar over the edge. The global economy is a complex and interconnected system, and even seemingly isolated events can have ripple effects that reverberate around the world. It's like a game of Jenga. You can carefully remove a few blocks, but eventually the whole tower comes crashing down. And when that happens, it's not just the dollar that suffers, it's the entire global economy and everyone who relies on it. For decades, the US dollar has reigned supreme as the currency of choice for oil transactions, the mighty petrodollar. But what happens when that dominance is challenged? Imagine a world where oil-producing countries start accepting other currencies, or even create their own oil-backed currency. It would be a seismic shift in the global economic order, and one that could have profound implications for the dollar. The loss of petrodollar status would be a major blow to the dollar's prestige and could further accelerate its decline. It's like a boxer losing their title belt. It doesn't mean they're not a contender anymore, but it certainly diminishes their aura of invincibility. Look, I'm not saying that the US dollar is definitely going to collapse tomorrow, but like a suspicious mole on your back, it's something you probably shouldn't ignore. The global economy is a complex and unpredictable beast, and anything is possible. The good news is, there are steps you can take to protect yourself from economic uncertainty. Diversify your investments, build an emergency fund, and maybe even consider alternative currencies. Just don't go all in on Dogecoin based on Elon Musk's latest tweet. The key is to stay informed, stay prepared, and don't panic. Because whether the dollar collapses or not, the future belongs to those who are ready for anything. Stay tuned for more insights on global economic trends.